This house, this life, everything you brag about, I paid for it. And tonight, I take it all back.
I never thought the day would come when my own family would tell me I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner. Yet here I was, standing on my son's front porch, hearing the words that hit harder than any winter wind. "Dad, we think it would be better if you didn't come this year." My daughter-in-law stood behind him with her arms crossed, the faint smirk on her face impossible to miss. I felt the cold seep into my bones, not just from the December air, but from the ice in my son's voice. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. It all started 2 weeks before Christmas. My son, Matthew, had invited me over for coffee, or at least that's what I thought. I'd been looking forward to it. Ever since my wife passed 3 years ago, the holidays had felt emptier, and spending them with my son and his family was my way of holding on to some piece of joy. But that morning, as I stepped into their pristine living room, I sensed something was off. The house smelled of cinnamon candles and expensive pine-scented sprays, the kind my daughter-in-law, Kelly, loved. The tree was already up, covered in golden ornaments and ribbons, nothing like the chaotic, love-filled trees my late wife used to decorate with the grandkids. Back then, it was all popcorn strings, handmade ornaments, and lights that blinked unevenly. This one looked like a showroom display. I sat down on the white sofa, careful not to wrinkle the throw pillows. Kelly didn't even sit. She hovered near the kitchen island, scrolling her phone like my presence was a mild inconvenience. Matthew cleared his throat and said, "Dad, there's something we need to talk about." My stomach tightened. "What is it, son?" He avoided my eyes, staring at the hardwood floor I'd helped him install last year. "About Christmas this year, we think it might be best if you didn't come." For a moment, I couldn't process the words. "What do you mean I didn't come?" "We always have Christmas together." Kelly finally looked up, her voice smooth but sharp. "My parents are visiting this year and we want to host a more formal dinner, with a certain atmosphere." I frowned. Atmosphere. Matthew shifted uncomfortably. "They're just particular about things." "And well, last year you spilled gravy on the tablecloth and told that story about Uncle Rick getting drunk. It was a lot." My chest burned. "So I'm not good enough for your dinner table now?" Kelly raised an eyebrow. "Please don't take it personally. We just want things to be elegant. It's only 1 year." Only 1 year, like it was a dentist appointment I could reschedule. I stood slowly, feeling every bit of my 62 years in that moment. "I see," I said quietly. "You want me gone so your fancy in-laws can have their perfect Christmas without me ruining the pictures." Matthew opened his mouth, but I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, Kelly muttered, "It's for the best." I drove home through the snow-dusted streets, my hands gripping the wheel tight enough to hurt. My own son had banned me from Christmas. The house felt colder than ever when I walked in. The tree I had half decorated the night before sat in the corner, lopsided and humble, just like every tree Maria and I had ever put up. I sank into my recliner and stared at it for a long time. The hurt turned to anger and then, slowly, to something else. Determination. If they wanted a Christmas without me, fine. But they were going to remember this holiday for the rest of their lives. That night, I poured myself a small glass of whiskey and started thinking. I wasn't a man of many possessions, but I wasn't helpless either. Decades of working construction and small investments had given me one thing my son and daughter-in-law didn't know about: options. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made over the years. I'd loaned Matthew money for his first car, co-signed the mortgage on his house, even paid for Kelly's business classes when she wanted to upgrade her career. And this was my reward: banishment. But if they thought I would just fade quietly into the background, they were wrong. Over the next few days, I began to form a plan. It started when I walked past the local toy store and saw a little girl staring at a dollhouse in the window. Her father crouched beside her, laughing as she pointed and giggled. For a moment I thought of Matthew as a boy, how his face used to light up on Christmas morning, how he'd leap into my arms with that pure, unfiltered joy. And now, he wouldn't even look me in the eye. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad and began writing. Not a letter, Not a plea, a plan. If they wanted to erase me from their Christmas, I would give them a holiday they would never forget. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. They thought they could cut me out of their lives for the holidays, treat me like an unwanted guest, and I would just sit here in my little house feeling sorry for myself. No. This year, Christmas was going to be different. I started by digging through my old files, the ones I kept locked in a small metal cabinet in my bedroom. Bank statements, loan documents, receipts, all proof of the years I'd helped my son and his wife build the life they flaunted now. Every granite countertop in that kitchen, every gleaming appliance, every dollar that went into making their home perfect had my fingerprints on it. I smiled as I flipped through the papers, the anger from yesterday turning into something sharper, resolve. I drove into town and stopped by my bank first. The teller knew me by name, and after a few verifications, I walked out with certified copies of everything I needed to show exactly how much I had contributed to my son's dream life. From there, I made a stop at a local print shop. I printed large, clear copies of the receipts, mortgage assistance letters, even the check I'd written to Kelly for her entrepreneurship course that she never finished. As I stacked them, an idea formed in my mind, and I felt a grin spread across my face. My gift under their tree wouldn't be wrapped in shiny paper or bows. It would be the truth, undeniable, uncomfortable, and unforgettable. Over the next few days, I started assembling everything like evidence for a trial. I bought a simple red folder for each dinner guest I knew would be at their Christmas table. I'd overheard Kelly talking about the guest list back in November. Her parents, her sister and brother-in-law, two of Matthew's old college friends and their wives. A full house of people who probably thought I was some sad, lonely old man. Good. Let them think that, until Christmas Eve. I spent nights writing a short, heartfelt letter to go inside each folder, explaining exactly how I had supported Matthew and Kelly for years, how I had been excluded from the very celebrations I had made possible, and how I wanted them to know the truth. No anger in the words, just facts. Calm, cold, and undeniable. By the time I was done, I had 12 perfect little packets of truth ready to go. On Christmas Eve, the snow was falling lightly as I loaded the folders into my old truck. I wore my best navy blazer, the one I had bought for Maria's funeral, and a crisp white shirt. I wasn't going to sneak in like some bitter intruder. No, I would walk into that house with dignity, with the weight of truth in my hands. Their driveway was packed with shiny cars, the house glowing with warm light. I could see silhouettes moving inside, laughter spilling out when someone opened the door briefly. For a moment, a pang of sadness hit me. That was supposed to be my family, but I shook it off. Tonight wasn't about sorrow. Tonight was about balance. I parked on the street, grabbed my briefcase full of folders, and walked up to the house. I didn't ring the bell. I turned the handle and stepped in, the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon filling the air. Conversations went silent. Kelly was the first to speak, her face draining of color. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, holding a wine glass midair. I smiled politely. "Merry Christmas to you too." Matthew appeared from the dining room, his expression a mix of shock and discomfort. "Dad, we talked about this." "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "You said I wasn't welcome. I heard you loud and clear. But I realized something. This is just your house. It's my investment, my sacrifice, my gift to this family, one you've all conveniently forgotten. So tonight, I thought I'd bring a different kind of Christmas present." I walked into the dining room, the stunned guests watching in silence as I placed a folder in front of each person at the table. Kelly's mother frowned. "What is this?" "The truth," I said simply. "Go ahead, open it." Paper rustled as they began to flip through the pages. Mortgage statements with my name, checks I had written, receipts for furniture, appliances, even Kelly's business course. Murmurs filled the room. Kelly's father looked up first, his eyebrows raised. "You paid for all of this?" I nodded. "Every inch of this home, every Christmas you've had here came at a cost to me. And now, this Christmas, I was told I didn't belong." Matthew's face had gone pale. Kelly's smirk was gone. The room was dead silent except for the soft hum of Christmas music from the living room. I straightened my shoulders and said, I wanted you all to know the kind of man you've been laughing at, excluding and treating like an afterthought. This will be my last Christmas gift to this family, the truth and freedom from my generosity, because after tonight I'm done." Gasps filled the room as the weight of my words sank in. The silence in that dining room felt heavier than the snow piling outside. I stood there, hands steady on the back of an empty chair, watching their faces as the truth sank in. Kelly's mother looked like she had bitten into something sour, flipping through the folder page by page. Her husband cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Matthew just stared at the papers like he'd never seen them before, his jaw tightening with each line he read. Kelly, though, was the first to break the silence. "This is completely inappropriate," she said, her voice trembling but sharp. "You came into our home and tried to humiliate us on Christmas Eve." I smiled, calm as ever. "No, Kelly, I didn't try to humiliate you. I came to remind everyone here that I exist. That this home, this meal, this picture-perfect life you flaunt all rests on the sacrifices I've made. And yet I was told I wasn't welcome." Her father leaned forward. "Is this true, Kelly? Did you really ask him not to come for Christmas?" Kelly sputtered, glancing between her parents and Matthew. "Well, we just wanted a certain atmosphere this year, a refined dinner. He can be a little loud." The word hung in the air like a bad smell. "Loud," I repeated, my voice steady. "You mean human, you mean real. Because nothing in this house feels real anymore, Kelly. It's all for show. And I was the fool who bankrolled the performance." Matthew's friend, a man I'd only met a couple of times, shifted in his seat uncomfortably. His wife whispered something in his ear, and I caught the word shame. Kelly's face went red. Matthew finally spoke. "Dad, I didn't know she told you not to come like that. I didn't mean for it to. I raised my hand to stop him. "Save it, son. You made your choice when you let her treat me like this. And now I'm making mine." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out one final envelope, thicker than the others. "This," I said, holding it up, "is my last act of generosity to this family. Inside is the transfer confirmation for the last mortgage payment I ever made on this house. As of January, you are fully responsible for it. I've canceled all automatic payments. This home is yours now, truly yours, along with every bill that comes with it." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Kelly's father sat back, his expression somewhere between impressed and horrified. "You were paying their mortgage?" he asked incredulously. "For 5 years," I said, my voice flat. "Every month. And this is the thanks I get." Kelly's mother shook her head, whispering something about disgraceful behavior to her daughter. The shame that bloomed on Kelly's face was like a sunrise I'd been waiting to see for years. I took a deep breath and looked around the room. "I won't be staying for dinner. I won't ever set foot in this house again. But I wanted you all to know that tonight, when you toast your blessings, you should remember the man you cut out of the picture. Remember that the foundation of this family's comfort came from someone you decided was disposable." I turned to leave, feeling the heat of a dozen eyes on my back. My hand was on the door when I heard Matthew's voice crack. "Dad, wait." I paused, glancing over my shoulder. His face was pale, his lips pressed tight, his hands gripping the back of a chair like he needed it to stay upright. I'm sorry," he said finally, his voice breaking. I let all of this happen. And I didn't stand up for you, I was wrong." Kelly's head whipped toward him, eyes wide. "Matthew," but he ignored her. "I should have never let this house or this life make me forget who gave me everything. I don't know how to fix this." For the first time that night, I felt a pang of something other than anger. Maybe pity, maybe hope, but I shook my head. "That's not for me to figure out, son. Merry Christmas." And with that, I walked into the cold December night, the snow crunching under my boots, the air sharp and clean in my lungs. Behind me, muffled voices rose in argument, and I knew I'd left a storm in my wake. But for the first time in years, I felt light, free. Driving home, I passed through neighborhoods glowing with Christmas lights, families gathered around trees, laughter echoing in living rooms. I thought about Maria, how she would have handled this. She always believed in kindness first, but even she would have agreed that sometimes people needed a reminder of the bridges they were burning. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat by my modest little tree, the colored lights reflecting off the glass. This Christmas wasn't the one I had dreamed of, but it was the one I needed. And as the clock ticked toward midnight, I realized I had just given myself the best gift of all, freedom from a family that no longer valued me. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the heaviness of dread or the quiet ache of being a background character in my own family. The winter sun filtered weakly through the frosted window of my small living room, glinting off the tinsel of my modest Christmas tree. I brewed myself a cup of strong coffee and sat in my recliner, staring at the tree lights reflecting on the glass of the framed photo of Maria on the mantel. "Merry Christmas, my love," I whispered to her. "You'd be proud of me. I finally stopped letting them walk all over me." My phone buzzed for the first time around 9 a.m. I didn't need to check to know who it was. When I finally looked, the screen was filled with missed calls and text notifications. Matthew, Kelly, and even numbers I didn't recognize, which I assumed were her parents. I scrolled through a few messages. Kelly's first one was short and sharp. "How dare you ruin Christmas?" Then a longer one followed. "My parents are horrified. You've embarrassed us in front of our friends and family. I hope you're happy." I smiled to myself. Happy. I was more than happy. I was free. Matthew's messages were different. His first said, "Dad, we need to talk. I messed up." Then another, "I don't know how to fix this, but I don't want to lose you." For a moment, I felt the sting of nostalgia, the echo of that little boy who used to run to me on Christmas mornings, his hair messy and his eyes full of wonder. But I wasn't that man anymore, and he wasn't that boy. He was a grown man who'd let his wife and in-laws humiliate me for years, who'd chosen image and convenience over loyalty and respect. I didn't reply. Around noon, I decided to take a drive. The streets were quiet, a soft layer of snow covering the world in a deceptive kind of peace. I drove past Matthew's neighborhood out of curiosity. From a distance, I could see cars still lining the driveway and street. I wondered what the atmosphere inside that perfect house was like now. I imagined the whispers, the questions from guests, the uncomfortable glances between Kelly and her parents as they realized the foundation of their pride had just crumbled. My gift under the tree had landed exactly where it needed to. Later that day, I visited my sister Rosa. She lived a few towns over in a cozy brick house that smelled like cinnamon rolls the moment you walked in. Her family welcomed me with open arms, no conditions, no judgments. My nephew handed me a lopsided gift he had wrapped himself, and my niece insisted I sit next to her during dinner. As I laughed with them and ate real homemade food in a warm, honest home, I realized this was what Christmas was supposed to feel like. No staged perfection, no hidden contempt, just love. I stayed until evening, and when I finally drove home, my voicemail was full again. This time there was a message from Kelly's father. I played it on speaker as I cooked myself a simple dinner. "Dennis, this is Harold Jenkins," he said stiffly. I think we need to talk. I may have misjudged some things last night. I'd like to discuss a way to move forward." I chuckled. A way to move forward. After years of being treated like a stain on their perfect image, now they wanted a conversation. I deleted the message without calling back. That night, as snow fell softly outside, I poured myself a small glass of whiskey and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote 3 words in bold letters: "No more martyr." I had spent too many years giving, sacrificing, and swallowing my pride for people who didn't deserve it. Last night wasn't just a Christmas rebellion, it was a turning point. I started making a list of things I wanted to do in the new year: travel somewhere warm, fix up my old truck, maybe even sell my house and move closer to Rosa. A clean slate, a fresh start. Around 10 p.m. there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Matthew was standing there, his face pale from the cold and maybe from guilt. He held a small wrapped box in his hands. "Dad," he said quietly, "can I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered slowly, looking around at my little living room as if he'd never really seen it before. "Merry Christmas," he said, holding out the box. I didn't take it. "You didn't want me at your Christmas, Matthew. Why are you here now?" He swallowed hard. Because I was wrong. I let Kelly run the show. I let her make me believe that keeping her parents happy mattered more than keeping you in my life. And I can't stop thinking about last night, about how you looked when you left. I felt like I lost you. His voice cracked, and for the first time in years I saw the boy in him again, the one who used to need me. I stayed silent, letting the weight of his words fill the room. He finally placed the small box on the coffee table. "This is for you. I know it can't fix everything, but it's a start." I looked at the box but didn't touch it. "Matthew," I said slowly, "I don't need gifts. I need respect. I need to know my own son won't sell me out for approval from people who don't care about me. Can you give me that?" He nodded quickly, tears shining in his eyes. "Yes, I swear I can. I don't want to lose you." I leaned back in my chair, letting out a long breath. "We'll see, son. Words are easy. Actions, those are harder. But maybe, just maybe, this Christmas will be the start of something different." The new year came faster than I expected, and with it came a sense of peace I hadn't felt in decades. I woke up on January 1st to a quiet house, the kind of quiet that didn't feel lonely anymore but free. My little living room still held the modest Christmas tree, its lights twinkling faintly in the early morning sun, and the small gift Matthew had left on my coffee table still sat unopened. I sipped my coffee, staring at that box. Part of me wanted to toss it in a drawer and forget about it, but curiosity finally got the better of me. I tore off the wrapping paper to reveal a simple wooden box, and inside there was a silver picture frame. It held a photo I hadn't seen in years, one of me, Matthew, and Maria standing in front of our old house with a crooked Christmas tree behind us, all three of us grinning like fools. My throat tightened. He had written on a slip of paper tucked behind the frame, "I forgot who I was. I want to remember again. I love you, Dad." For a moment I felt a pang of hope, fragile but real. Maybe the boy I'd raised was still in there somewhere, buried under years of pride and bad choices. But I didn't call him. Not yet. He needed to sit with his actions a while longer, to understand that respect couldn't be bought with a picture frame and a few words. 2 weeks passed before I heard from him again, but this time it wasn't a text or a call. It was a knock on my door one icy Saturday morning. When I opened it, Matthew stood there with a snow shovel in his hands, his breath visible in the cold air. "Thought I'd clear your driveway," he said simply. I didn't move aside or smile. I just watched him for a moment. "You've never done that before," I said. He shrugged. "I should have. I should have done a lot of things." And then he went to work, scraping and shoveling in silence while I stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching the man my son was trying to become. That afternoon he came inside, cheeks red from the cold, and we talked for the first time like real father and son in years. He told me the fallout from Christmas had been worse than he imagined. Kelly's parents had left in a rage, their perfect image of the family shattered. Some of their friends hadn't called since. And Kelly, well, she wasn't handling the shame well. "She's been furious with me," he admitted. "She said I betrayed her by not defending her, but Dad, I couldn't. Not after everything you showed them. I felt sick, embarrassed, not by you, by myself." I listened quietly, letting him pour it all out. "She's talking about moving in with her parents for a while," he said. "And honestly, I don't know if I'll try to stop her. I think I've finally realized who she is and who I've been letting myself become." I nodded slowly. "Matthew, I can't make your choices for you, but I can tell you this: respect isn't a game. Family isn't about fancy dinners and perfect pictures. It's about loyalty, about showing up for each other even when it's inconvenient or messy. And for years I showed up for you. You didn't show up for me." He lowered his head. "I know, and I hate myself for it." "Don't hate yourself," I said after a pause. "Just change, and don't ever let someone make you forget where you come from again." Over the next month, I saw a transformation in my son I never expected. He came by twice a week to help me with repairs I'd been putting off for years. We fixed the porch light that had been flickering since before Christmas, patched the drafty window in the kitchen, and even replaced a loose section of the fence out back. Each time we worked mostly in silence, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that feels like healing. One evening, as we sat on my porch watching the snow fall, he said something that stayed with me. "You know, Dad, that Christmas, It broke something. But maybe it needed to break. I think I finally see who I've been, and I don't want to be that man anymore. I nodded, staring at the quiet street. Sometimes, I said, people need a little shock to wake up. That was your gift under the tree, son. Not the folders, not the mortgage, the chance to change. He smiled faintly, and for the first time I felt like maybe my family wasn't completely lost after all. Winter eventually began to fade, and with it, the sharpness of the pain I'd carried for so long started to soften into something else. Resolve. Life was different now. My days were quieter, but they were mine, free from the constant weight of trying to please people who had never truly seen me. I had learned the hardest lesson that Christmas. Sometimes the people you sacrifice the most for are the ones who will take you most for granted until you make them face the truth. Matthew kept coming around week after week. At first, it was to help with chores like shoveling snow or patching up the old shed. But slowly it became something more. He would stay for dinner, sometimes bringing takeout, other times helping me cook. He started to talk, not just about the house or his problems, but about memories, about mom, about the little things he used to love when he was a kid. It was like watching a frostbitten tree in winter begin to sprout buds again. Kelly, on the other hand, chose a different path. She ended up moving in with her parents after that infamous Christmas, blaming me for ruining her life and for turning the town against her. But the truth is, I didn't ruin anything. I only held up the mirror. Matthew said that after a few weeks she started talking about lawyers and separation. I stayed out of it. Their choices were theirs. My only focus was reclaiming my dignity and the quiet pride of knowing who I was. One crisp March morning, I got a knock on my door. When I opened it, Matthew was standing there again, but this time he looked different, lighter, freer. He had a small duffel bag with him. "She left," he said simply, "and I think it's for the best." I stepped aside and let him in. He looked around my modest living room, now freshly painted and tidied from the projects we had worked on together, and he smiled. "You know," he said, "this feels more like home than that big house ever did." I poured us both coffee, and we sat in silence for a while, letting the weight of all the unspoken words settle. Finally, he said, "Dad, I don't know how to thank you. Not just for everything you've done for me all these years, but for waking me up. I was blind. I was arrogant. And I almost lost the only real family I had." I looked at him, my son, not as the man who had hurt me, but as the man who was finally trying to make things right. "You didn't almost lose me," I said softly. "You gave me away, but now maybe you're starting to earn me back." Spring came, and with it, a sense of renewal. Matthew started helping me plant a small garden in the backyard, something Maria had always wanted but we'd never gotten around to. We planted tomatoes, cucumbers, and a few flowers she loved. It felt like stitching together pieces of a life that had been torn apart. One evening, as we stood on the porch watching the sun dip low and the first fireflies blink in the yard, Matthew turned to me and said, "I'll never forget that Christmas, Dad. The night you walked in and put those folders on the table. It was the worst night of my life, and the best thing that ever happened to me." I chuckled softly, feeling the warmth of a peace I'd fought hard to earn. "Sometimes, son," I said, "the best gifts aren't wrapped. They're the ones that shake you so hard you never forget them." That night, as I sat by my now fully repaired fireplace with a small glass of whiskey, I realized I wasn't just free from the burden of being unappreciated. I was free from the fear of losing the version of family I thought I needed. I had faced betrayal, I had delivered my reckoning, and I had walked away with my head high. The man I saw in my reflection now wasn't bitter, just wiser. And if Maria could see me, I knew she would nod with that little smile she always had when I finally stood up for myself. Life had given me a brutal lesson, but also a chance to start over. And for the first time in years, I was ready to take it. If you liked this story, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're ready for another unforgettable tale of family, betrayal, and the sweet taste of justice, click on the box to the left for the next story. You won't want to miss it.